In this video, we're going to talk about how to multiply and divide complex numbers when they're written in polar form. But before we do that, let's multiply these two complex numbers written in a plus bi form and plot these two numbers and the result on the complex plane. Let's start by multiplying z sub 1, which is negative 2 plus 0i, times z sub 2, which is 0 plus 4i. Now, when written in a plus bi form, we know we treat these complex numbers like binomials. So to multiply these two complex numbers, we would use the FOIL process. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. Negative 2 times 4i is negative 8i. 0 times 0 is 0, and 0i times 4i is 0i squared, which is still 0. So the result of multiplying these two complex numbers in a plus bi form is negative 8i. Now let's plot each of these complex numbers and the result negative 8i in the complex plane and see if we can find a pattern. Let's plot negative 2 plus 0i first. That point would be there in the complex plane. Now let's plot 0 plus 4i. That point would be here. Now, from these 2 points, let's see what we can gather about what these 2 points would look like in polar form. Let's start with negative 2 plus 0i. Well, it's easy to see that negative 2 plus 0i has a modulus of 2 because it's 2 units away from the origin. And 0 plus 4i has a modulus of 4 because it's 4 units away from the origin. So z sub 1 has a modulus of 2, and z sub 2 has a modulus of 4. Z sub 1 would have a theta of pi units, and z sub 2 would have a theta of pi over 2 units. Now let's plot the result of negative 8i. Negative 8i would be here on the complex plane. The modulus of negative 8i is 8 because the point negative 8i is 8 units away from the origin. And the theta associated with negative 8i would be 3 pi over 2. Now the question is, do we see a pattern? Well, when I multiplied z1 times z2, the resulting modulus was 8. Notice that the modulus of z1 was 2 and z2 was 4. When I multiplied the two complex numbers, the modulus was 8. So when I multiply two complex numbers to get the resulting modulus, all I have to do is multiply the moduli. What do you notice about this angle and this angle? The angle of z sub 1 was pi, and the angle associated with z sub 2 was pi over 2. The angle associated with their product was 3 pi over 2. Well, pi plus pi over 2 is 3 pi over 2. So when we multiply two complex numbers in polar form, we just multiply their moduli and add their arguments. Conversely, to divide two complex numbers in polar form, all we do is divide the moduli and subtract the arguments. So look at this example below. Here we have two complex numbers that are written in polar form, and we want to find the product and the quotient of these two complex numbers. And we're going to give our answer in polar form. First, we want to find z sub 1 times z sub 2. To multiply the first complex number times the second, multiply the moduli. 4 times 2 is 8. And add the arguments. The first has an argument of 120 degrees, and the second has an argument of 30 degrees. So the new argument is 150 degrees. Now let's divide z1 by z2. To divide two complex numbers in polar form, we divide the moduli and subtract the arguments, or subtract the angles. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and the new argument will be 120 degrees minus 30 degrees, which is 90 degrees. And there is z sub 1 divided by z sub 2.